A blockbuster trade has just happened. As I'm recording this video, Maxx Crosby has just been traded to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, it says here on the Schefter tweet that it can't be processed till next week, till the new league year starts, I think. But it looks like Maxx Crosby is going to be traded to the Ravens for two first round picks, which is pick 14 from the Ravens this year, and then their 2017 first round pick. This just happened like this minute. I thought I gotta get a video recorded quickly talking about this trade. There's honestly not going to be a lot to talk about because there's not much to really say. We all know how good Maxx Crosby is. I mean, he's a five-time Pro Bowler, two-time All-Pro. He finished fourth in DPOY 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We all know how great Maxx Crosby is. He's just been stuck on the Raiders his whole career and hasn't done anything because he hasn't had a chance to do anything because he's just been rotting away on the Raiders. And now he gets to go to a legit contender in Baltimore. They do give up the 14th pick, which hasn't updated here on the website on Tankathon, but they get the 14th pick. Now that's going to change all the mock drafts, but the Raiders could be interested in a pass rusher. They could get a Keldrick Folk, a Akeem Mesidor, a TJ Parker, or just someone else. But they now have the 14th pick and the first pick, or they could just get more help for Fernando Mendoza. Get him let's go back to the mock draft. You could get him Mekhi Lemon at receiver, and now you get Fernando Mendoza and a top receiving threat, Kenyon Sadiq. Well, not Sadiq, you have Brock Bowers. I was thinking receiving threats, but you could get Mekhi Lemon. This I didn't think it was. It looked like it was either going to be the Bears or the Ravens, maybe a team like the Eagles, maybe a team like the Cowboys, but it ends up being Baltimore. They traded away Odafe Owe for Alohi Gilman at the trade deadline this most recent season, and that really left them a hole at their pass rusher position. Let's look at Ravens depth chart real quick. Is this going to have him on the team? Well, not because the trade's unofficial. But ever since they got rid of Odafe Owe, their pass rushers were Kyle Van Noy and Draymond Jones. We knew they needed an upgrade, right? I constantly had them going after pass rushers in my mock drafts. I had them signing Khalil Mack in my free agency predictions. So they needed edge rusher ever since getting rid of Owe. Because Kyle Van Noy is actually pretty good. He had a good year. Not necessarily this season, but he's played good on Baltimore. Trying to find it. Yeah, to me, he had a 12 and a half sack season last year. I know sacks aren't everything, but he's a solid player. He's just 34 years old, and they kind of need somebody next to Kyle Van Noy in general, and just a top tier pass rusher regardless. And now you get one of the best pass rushers in football in Maxx Crosby, who is only, how old is he? He's currently 28 years old, and he'll be 29 when the season starts. I like this for the Ravens. Yeah, you gave up the 14th pick, which is a pretty good pick, but guess what? You're not going to draft a Maxx Crosby caliber player at 14, more likely than not. Like, yeah, you could go after a Keldrick Folk or an Akeem Mesidor or TJ. You could get one of these guys with your 14th pick, but there's a very good chance they're not going to be Maxx Crosby. If you really want Maxx Crosby and a good chance of a guy being a caliber of Maxx Crosby caliber player, you got to get Ruben Bain or David Bailey. The Ravens weren't getting that at 14. So I don't really care that they gave up the 14th pick because you can still add depth at any position with your second round pick. And their 2027 first that they also traded away, they traded away their 27 first. That's likely going to be a late pick. The Ravens having the 14th pick in the draft is a rare occasion. They're not going to have that low of a pick very often. So there's a good chance their 2027 first is in the 20s. So you gave up pick 14 this year which isn't really in range for getting one of the top pass rushers. And you give up what, like a top 20, top 25 pick even for one of the best pass rushers, one of the best players in the league. When you're trying to maximize on this Lamar Jackson era that you currently have, because it hasn't been the most successful time when it comes to the postseason, at least with Lamar Jackson. But now you got Jesse Minter as your head coach. Lamar's hopefully back healthy. You bring in one of the better players in the league in Maxx Crosby. I think it's a great trade for the Ravens. Initial reaction, quick reaction. I'm gonna give this, honestly. I think you give it an A, maybe even an A plus for the Ravens. I don't see why you don't do this trade if you're Baltimore. I'm pretty sure they even had the money too, hence why they could have signed one of the top edge rusher free agents. I'll quickly look at the team's salary cap. This is a quick reaction, one take type thing because I didn't expect this to happen at 8 p.m. Central Time. But the Ravens have about middle of the pack salary cap, slightly above middle of the cap. Middle of the pack, they're at just under 30 million currently. They have the money. He's one of the best players at his position. You gave up the 14th pick and potentially a very late pick in 2027 to try and maximize your Super Bowl window and try and get a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. I think it's a great trade for the Ravens. And on the Raiders side of things, I mean, you go into a full rebuild. You weren't going to win anything with Maxx Crosby, right? Maxx Crosby's not going to help you win a championship. What's going to help you win a championship is rebuilding, getting resources, getting draft capital, and turning that draft capital into new pieces. Now, could they? I was just saying how the Ravens couldn't draft a Maxx Crosby type player at 14. Maybe the Ravens can. Who knows? There was that Lamar Jackson did make that tweet the other day. I think it was today actually. Just kind of like teasing something happened, and who knows? Was it the Maxx Crosby trade? I don't know. But again, if you're the Raiders, I think this is also a good trade for the Raiders because the Maxx Crosby, again, as I said before, you were never going to win with Maxx Crosby. It the tenure between the two, the relationship. I don't think Maxx Crosby necessarily hated the Raiders and like requested a trade. I just think he knew he wasn't going to win much with them. So if you're going to trade him, you're going to trade him. But yeah, you had no reason to keep Maxx Crosby. You maximize on his value. You get 2 first-round picks, even if they're late first-round picks. Those late first-round picks aren't useful for a team like Baltimore who's trying to contend. But you know what those late-round picks are useful for? A Raiders team who is trying to rebuild with their new potential franchise first overall pick quarterback, likely pick quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. I think this is a win-win trade for both teams. Baltimore maximizes on their current Super Bowl window because it hasn't been the greatest maximization of it. You bring in your new coach, Jesse Minter. You make a big trade, and your Raiders, you maximize on Maxx Crosby's value because if they held on to him, what's his contract? What's Max? I can look this up right now. Maxx Crosby contract. Maxx Crosby is currently going to be a free agent next year. So he's an expiring deal. So I feel like this is good just to trade him now before he hits free agency. You get something in return for him instead of just losing him for nothing. And it's a pretty good value. It's a pretty good return. If you're the Raiders, maybe you could have got a little more. If you traded him to Chicago, maybe you get like DJ Moore back. But once DJ Moore went to Buffalo, I know we haven't talked about the Buffalo DJ Moore trade, the McDuffie trade, or the Montgomery trade. We'll probably talk about that more during our free agency recaps / offseason recaps. But as soon as the DJ Moore trade happened, you probably weren't going to trade Maxx Crosby to the Bears. I guess not necessarily that, but you weren't going to get you are likely going to get a very similar package. And guess what? The Ravens have the 14th pick. Chicago has the 25th pick. So would you rather have Chicago's 25th pick and their 2027 first, or would you rather have Baltimore's 14th pick and their 2027 first? I think even though Baltimore's 2027 first might be lower than Chicago's, I'm taking the guaranteed 14th pick over the guaranteed 25th pick. Because we don't know how good Baltimore or Chicago would have been next year if they traded for Maxx Crosby. But what you know now is that Baltimore has pick 14 and Chicago has pick 25. So if I'm the Raiders, I'd rather trade him for Baltimore and get that 14th pick because that's, again, still a very good pick. It's a top 15 pick, and I can either give you your next Maxx Crosby, or you can go all in on Fernando Mendoza and get him some O-line help. You can get him some receiving help to pair alongside Bowers and Genty. I think overall win-win trade. Shocked that it happened, but I guess over the last day or two, the Maxx Crosby rumors really started heating up, and it seemed like he was going to get traded the week before free agency. Free agency is Monday, I'm pretty sure, or Tuesday. So it's close. I guess Tankathon tells me if you go here. Yeah, free agency is in 2 days from now. 2 days and 14 hours. So I think it is Monday, in the middle of the day. Blockbuster trade. Maxx Crosby is now a Baltimore Raven. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.